Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner, Periphery. Periphery is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. So hello and welcome, Chero, to Urbanistica podcast.
Thank you.
Happy to see you here finally.
Me too. I'm very happy to finally sit here with you and have a nice talk.
Yes, we were colleagues when I started this.
Yes.
And then I went here, you went doing PhD, and now we're back again.
Yes, so I've kind of followed your path from the very first, planning and setting up the first people that you interviewed.
Yeah, they were our
and
colleagues.
Those late nights. Yeah, I remember.
Good. I'm so happy to see you and following also your PhD journey.
Yeah,
it's tough with PhD, but finally I have you here, and I have so many questions to you about like your PhD, but also about how is it being a PhD student.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to sit here and get the chance to talk about how it is to do a PhD and just answer these questions, because I remember when I first started myself, it was also very, very unclear. What does a PhD student do?
Yeah.
How is the life of a PhD, student? So.
Gonna explore.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's start. I think we're gonna do like this during this episode. First, we talk about like your PhD. Mm-hmm. What do you investigate and so on, the topic, and then we're gonna talk about how is it like being a PhD student and what does it mean and who, all this. And the third, we're gonna talk about like more your passion, journey, and past and future and something like this.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, I hope you're ready also.
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. So Chero, tell us, like, because your topic is related to the Swedish Million Program.
Yeah.
So maybe give us a highlight about the Swedish Million Program. Then we talk about what do you investigate.
Great. Yes. So I can talk a lot about the Swedish Million Program because that is like the umbrella which I'm doing my PhD within this theme and area also. But so to simplify what the Million Program is about is that in the 60s, this social democratic government in Sweden had an ambition to build 100,000 homes for a period of 10 years. And this resulted in 1 million homes. Okay. So that's why it's called 1 million. Yeah, and
homes like it's like
program, but Million Program
like
Swedish.
A unit.
Yes.
Wow.
So dwelling units or housing, units. So it could be apartments or row houses or what are they are called, single family, houses. Yeah. So it was actually quite mixed, even though a lot of people think that it was only these high-rise buildings that you see in
the suburbs, maybe
in some suburbs.
Yeah.
But it was very mixed actually. And so
it's
it was
this extensive, very ambitious, no?
Very ambitious program, and there were this program was based on state-funded and research-led housing investigations.
Okay.
And there were quite a lot of them actually. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that it just came out of the blue. There was a lot of research put into these.
Like the plan and the goal.
Yes.
So it's not like they wake up and they be like, okay, let's build this.
No. So there was a lot of effort put behind. Creating this housing program that we in common name call it Million Program.
Yes.
So yes, this lasted between 1965 and 1974. Yes, so it wasn't only like houses and new neighborhoods that were built. It was also outdoor environments, and that's where I come in. So I look at the both neighborhood planning, but also the like playgrounds and outdoor spaces and structures, and how do these fit into the ideals of that period, and how are they seen today? So
interesting. And you
going
mentioned
into
exactly you're what you're researching. But tell me, which year was the Million Program like initiated and like was done or built up?
So the program was between 1965 and 1974.
Okay.
And it was under the period that's called the record years, which is I always mix it up, but the record years when it was like an economic boom, and there was a lot of like how do you say, like growth in Sweden.
Okay.
This was 1961 until 1975. So the Million Program was within this period.
Okay, when the economy was flourishing. And everyone is happy.
Yeah, and then we had this economic
what like do you call it? Crisis,
in the 70s. So
that's sad.
That's when it stagnated. But we had a great period in the 60s and 70s, and a lot of our structures that we see in Sweden today, they set a foundation for what we can continue to build on, and that legacy is really present.
Because they didn't only build like housing units; they built like an entire areas, right?
Yeah.
Like with the highways, roads, playgrounds, like a new city.
Yeah, it
areas.
Was like if we look at Stockholm, we have Järvafield, for example. That's like a complete new city within the Stockholm region that was built. So, and we have a lot of those examples around Swedish cities.
In the entire Sweden. Yeah. And tell me about the background of how you got the idea of investigating your research question. Like, how did it start?
Yes, so it's worth mentioning that when I applied to this PhD position, it was already set under. So there was it's financed by Formas, this Swedish
agency. To be honest, I don't know exactly the name, but
translation.
But
so it funds research, for example. And my supervisor, Jennifer Mack, it's her research project that I am continuing in. And so she had framed the question, and I continued. Let's say, like I developed my question within her larger question,
like sub question that contributed to the big one.
Yes.
So
exactly.
The big one was about.
The big one was about how these structures have changed. More to simplify the question, it's about how these structures have changed and transformed since they were constructed, and how that has affected the ecology and the spatial dimensions and the politics.
Also.
Yes. So, and my research continues in this like
flow.
This flow or this path. But I look more into the landscape perspective.
So more on the ecological aspect?
Both ecological, but also like structures, park structures and planning documents. How have these outdoor spaces how have they developed? Who has developed them? Is it led by the people who moved into these areas, or is it a state or like, let's say, governmental led these changes?
Yeah. So it's like you're kind of following up the story or the journey of this built environment.
Yes.
What happened from the time they were built until today, right?
Yes. Yeah? Because, and this is where I at least think it gets interesting, because it was built for one type of like, there was one vision with the person or the people who would move into the Million Program areas. And it was the typical family of like a mother and a father and two children. And it was this unit that was expected to be seen. And if you look at the culture and the people today, and
completely different.
It's completely different. And this is what I find really interesting. Like, what are these new cultures that have developed in the Million Program areas?
Yeah, it's interesting
in these
because
landscapes.
Yeah, because like my family, when we moved from Iraq to Sweden, to Helsingborg, we got this kind of housing unit, like in a million program.
Yeah.
And we were like 6 people, like parents and 4 children.
Yeah.
So it's not really fitting the visionary image or target group.
Yeah. So, and this is a bit what I'm looking into. Like,
also,
I mean,
like how
I myself and my family, I have the same story as you have.
Yeah.
So it's the same, but it's just another city and another million program area.
So tell me, like when you have the research question, how do you set up the methodology so you reach like the answer?
Right. So that is because you're doing, in Sweden at least, it's different depending on where you're doing your research, like what country and what university you're based at. But in Sweden, and in my case, you do it over 4 years. And during these 4 years, you continuously change and adapt and update and, you know...
The methodology?
The methodology, but also how you go forward with your research. So, for example, you do courses as well. But it's just that they're on a higher level. It's not a master's course. It's...
the next level.
Yeah.
You attend the courses or you
not only attend, but we participate and engage actively. So it's seminar courses and yes, sometimes not lectures really, but presentations more like this. So in these courses you get different tools, but you also all continuously work with the material that you have produced.
Okay.
So for me, a lot of like one of the methods that I deeply like depend on is to do field works. And I have to, so I have my case studies in 3 different Swedish cities. It's Kalmar, it's Stockholm, and it's Malmö. So I have to go back to these sites and understand how the people are using these spaces to you know, analyze.
Yeah, like you're observing, right?
Yes, that's
I remember you were in love, like being in the field.
Yes.
And watching people, observing, talking to them.
Yeah. We have that in common from, you know, work.
Yeah, back in the days. You have the same methodology that you observe like the life there.
Yes, we call that participatory observation.
So now it's the academic.
So that's one of the methods that developed over time.
Yeah, it's good that you're telling this kind of academic, what do you call it?
Terms.
It's
or
good
methodology.
We learn. So every time you have something, like just
I will try to remember.
Shoot it. Okay. So and what is it about, like in the academic way?
You
like
mean participatory observation? So the way I have adapted it is that you're in the field or in the field and you do your observations, but you also engage with the people who you observe. Or it doesn't necessarily need to be people. It could also be like plants or animals or, you know, anything that's also non-human. So if I'm like in an allotment garden, my way of doing or performing participatory observation is to also do gardening. So I learn more about the culture and the site and understand the structures by being actively, you know.
So you engage in the objects and the okay, interesting.
And I do the same in all case studies. So that's that with the gardening. Yeah. When I look at this neighborhood park in Kalmar, my hometown. Yeah. I talk with the children, or I can sometimes when they play soccer, I throw the ball back to them, and when it gets lost, you know, and they kick it to the other side of the park. Yeah. So I try to continuously
like engaged in the life that is happening there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but why you chose these like three cities?
That also came actually quite naturally. So the first one, let me go back to my memory. I think the first one I started with was Järvafield, because we're in Stockholm. Järvafield is a region in Stockholm that is surrounded by, so it's called Järvafield because it's an open area with a rich history dating back to the Iron Age. Wow. And this field, it has there are so many layers of history, but also in recent times, so the 60s, that's when these Million Program areas were developed around the field. Okay. So it became interesting for me to understand more about the field, but also because I was given a courses and assignments, I was given a task to find a spatial practice. Spatial practice, the way I understand it and use it, is so it doesn't, how to say, there is a space and it doesn't necessarily show traces of how it's being used. And there can be a lot of activities happening in this space. That's why you say practice in spatial practice.
Okay.
Like walking on a sidewalk, that's a spatial practice. Or, for example, attending a festival, that can be a spatial practice.
Okay.
Doing something. So it's something that like people, using a space. It's just thinking about everything that happens in everyday life. Just like imagine you're a wall and just looking at everything that happens around the wall, like outdoors. Because that's my focus. I'm not in the wall, I'm outside the wall. So you see like the movements, cars, bees, all of this
in life
happening. Yeah. But it's things that doesn't leave traces on the floor. Like what is it called? Like skating? Yeah, maybe it leaves traces somehow, but that can also be a spatial practice.
Yeah. Okay, so you did this in Järva.
I did this in Järva because I found out that there's the Kurdish and also Iranian and Afghan. It's a lot of people celebrating New Year in the Järva field. Yeah. So I understood that the Kurdish New Year celebration happened in this field, and it had been ongoing since 1987.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, I tried to learn more about it on internet and in literature, and there was almost no information about it. And this is why I was like, this is a spatial practice that needs to be, known and written about. So that was my first project, and I started writing about it through this, course assignment, and it developed into a chapter actually. So
this is how you how Stockholm and because Järva fältet is a part of Järva field is a part of Stockholm. So this is how you have Stockholm in the list.
Yeah.
And then you have Kalmar. I know your family in Kalmar, right?
Yeah.
And you grow up there as well.
I grew up there.
Yeah.
So that was it was a natural way of doing the project in Järva field.
Yeah.
And then Kalmar also became a natural case studies city, because that's where my family lives, and I would commute a lot back and forth. Not commute, but travel a lot back and forth to visit family
them and so on.
Yeah. And it also actually, when I started the landscape architecture program, that's when I started thinking about the structures of, so the neighborhood is called Norrliden.
In Kalmar?
In Kalmar. Yeah. So I started thinking about the structures of Norrliden and my upbringing. And I remember that me and my cousins and friends, we were always outdoors, climbing in the trees and just always being outdoors and feeling really safe and feeling like this is our world,
And it was the Million Program project.
It was the first one in Kalmar, actually.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I kept thinking about the structures of this, area. So when I did my PhD, or in the beginning when I began the PhD, I went back to those thoughts, which I had when I was doing, when I was studying landscape. Yeah. So I was like, why am I not studying Norrliden? It's super interesting to understand the structures and to just to see how and understand how it has developed. Because the park, every time I visited, when I visited my family in Kalmar, I would see that something new would happen.
Okay.
And it got me a bit stressed. Like, why are there less trees? Why are the bushes not there anymore?
Like more urban development.
Yeah. So the outdoor spaces were very much they were continuously changing and in a negative way. So like demolition and all of these things happen.
Yeah.
Another time I went back, the kindergarten in the central part of the neighborhood had been demolished. So now it was like an open space with only the border. So it's
a lot of changes, no?
A lot of changes. And this went back to my research question. So I was like, maybe
it's a good case.
Norrliden is a good case study to look further into. You know?
Okay. Now we have the second case.
Yeah.
And the third one was, where do you say? Malmö?
In Malmö.
Yeah. What is your story there?
And this story began actually before I did my PhD. So during the pandemic, you remember that I moved back to Kalmar.
Yes.
I did courses and other things in between jobs.
Yeah.
So when I was in Kalmar, close to my family, which also they have like an allotment garden, and there was this allotment garden. How to say, like conflict with the gardeners of the city and the municipality. So I came in as a mediator to help them communicate with each other and create like a bridge with the in between them.
Wait, was this in Kalmar or in Malmö?
This was in Kalmar.
Okay, so you went there like a kind of to facilitate and bring people together.
Yes, because there were a lot of things that went on that didn't really follow the democratic, process of, having dialogue and then,
Okay.
So then in this, idea, I was like, well, we all look at Malmö as the green city, green city of Sweden and the allotment city, odlar. The gardening,
urban farming. Or gardening.
The gardening culture is really strong in Malmö. I'm going to use Malmö as a good, example in this Kalmar case.
Okay.
So, going, jumping forward to the PhD.
Yeah.
I came to think of this when I was in Kalmar, Malmö is a really interesting case. Why didn't I should maybe continue with that idea I had back, a few years ago.
Okay.
So then I was planning on comparing Kalmar and Malmö and the gardening culture and, how the municipality meets or does not meet their, the gardeners of the city. But also how that is tied to these Million Program areas and the cultures that have developed over time. So when I wanted to do this comparison, I realized that the idea, the image we have of Malmö as a gardening,
it's not true.
The gardening culture is definitely there.
Yeah.
But what I imagined, just me as an individual, and what I understood after interviews and so on, it was a bit different. So it was very much, let's say, it was more that the gardeners themselves had to push it forward to have these opportunities to do gardening in the city.
Okay, so it's not like the city was so kind and engaged and giving them what they want directly, or it's more like they needed to push first then.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in this case with Malmö, and I'm specifically looking at a neighborhood in Holma. Also here again, going back to my research question, I was looking for like how is the gardening culture in Malmö? I had an image, but now I'm looking at something else.
Yeah.
So when I visited Holma in Malmö, I realized that also this allotment area that was actually it was part of the original design of Holma. So already in the 70s, I think 71, 72.
Okay.
The neighborhood of Holma was designed, but also having gardening.
Wow, yeah. So cool.
Yeah, and also hills, because it's very common, it's a common perception of that time that because it was, the buildings that were built during this period, it was very like modular, and it was supposed to be a quick pace, and you flatten the ground and then you would put a few trees, or something like this. But in my research, I've also found out that it's not really the case. So for example, in Holma, in this Million Program area, they actually constructed hills. So you have these larger hills that are there, and then you have these allotment garden, gardens as a part of this larger park. So it goes against how
like the traditional or classic way of
understanding and seeing Million Program areas.
Yeah. So you have these three cases, but they are like in each city or in each area, there is something special. You're not investigating exactly the same typology, right?
Yeah.
Like there are different stories in different cities.
Yes, so you have similar themes. It's about these like cultures that have developed.
Yeah.
But I'm also trying to write histories that haven't been written. So that's what I'm trying to do with grabbing different examples of Million Program areas and what is happening in these areas that aren't written as a part of, landscape architecture history.
So
and
more
also
like
Swedish history.
Yeah, so more about the transformation. What is happening that we maybe it's not documented, because what we know mostly about the Million Program, that it was built this year for this kind of people and like this, but we don't know, or there is maybe not so much documented after what is happening now and how was the transformation of this kind of typologies.
But also so that's one part, like one aspect of what I'm doing, but I'm also looking at the visions the visions that planners and architects and politicians had in the beginning when they planned these areas, and who it is that are using
these areas
spaces,
now.
Using and living in these areas.
Okay.
So that's also different, I'm looking at the transformation over time, but I'm also looking at what it was
aimed for.
And what it is today.
So interesting.
So
do you I don't know if because I want to ask you about the results or so on, like what do you see similar, what happened, did they fail or not, like how far have you come now, like because you're in the third year of your fourth?
Yes.
Of your 4 years?
I actually have they don't want us to call it that, but like an 80% research seminar. So I've done more than halfway.
Nice.
And I'm in the last, let's say, period.
Okay. Doing podcasts is 90%.
I will ask them if they can include it.
So can you tell us what are your findings so far?
So because I'm not all the way. Let's say I've done about 80% now. I can draw some conclusions, of course, but I'm not
exactly, not the final.
It's not.
Maybe you can share with us also some data or but before you do that, I'm interested in the methodology when you're out talking to people. How do you do it?
It's a big question. Of course, before I thought I knew observation and all of these things before I went into the field, because I did it in my master's thesis, and we did it when we were
projects,
working. But I realized at this level that you really need to not only do it doing the practice part, but you really have to read about it also, to learn through literature and through other ethnographers. So important to understand how ethnographers work and ethnographic research, using these ethnographic research methods. So step one for me was to read a lot of literature on methods, ethnographic methods.
What, why, and how.
So important.
Okay.
Because you don't want to start in the wrong end, because you have these ethical aspects. Because I'm working with humans, it's really important to do it the correct way.
Okay.
So that no one ever gets hurt in any way.
Hurt or disrespected or you treated unfair.
So that was step one. Read about it, understand how it works. Step two, you visit the site, you choose what time. For me, it's very depending on the project. So you have the Järva project. The celebration of Nowruz begins in the evening.
And so Nowruz is the new year. Nowruz is in Kurdish, right? Or
Kurdish is Nowruz. In Persian, it's Nowruz. I think it's similar. Similar but different. the word.
And
but also the meaning.
And it was evening? Or?
So in the evening. So then that would naturally have me going to the field in the evenings, but I would always go there before it began. So I would understand how the people come to the field, where do they come from? I would stand and from afar
distance
and see how what is happening.
Nice.
What is it I'm seeing? So that would be step one, observing from a distance.
And you document, like you draw, or how do you do it?
Yes. So I take notes. Sometimes I draw to understand distances, and I measure like in my head, like, oh yeah, it's about 20 meters between the bonfire and the symbols and the buildings, and so I do these very simple sketches.
Okay.
And then I go slowly but surely go closer to the event. So if it feels like, I mean, you it's very important to read the room. I'm saying the room even though we're outdoors, but it's it's
like
a room.
The physical atmosphere in the room.
Yes. To understand, is it appropriate for me as a researcher to ask a question or push my research forward, or should I
just be there and like
be there
experience
and understand how it is. So it's a lot about this, understanding what is appropriate and what is not appropriate.
So step one, you were reading theories and literature about how to do it.
Yeah.
Step two, you went to observe from distance.
Yeah.
And three is to get closer and maybe talk to people if you see this is like suitable.
Yes. So you can say this is one part, doing the field work. And then you have another part for me that's been to dig in the archives.
Okay.
And you have archives.
Before we dig in the archive, save it there. When you tell me, like, when you're there, like, do you say, hello, I'm PhD, I'm doing this? Like, did you have the chance to talk to people?
It's in the specific, a Nowruz celebration event. It's not always that you want to push your research forward. So it's actually, when I have conversations, I normally contact people afterwards so that I don't disturb them during their celebration.
Yeah, it's a celebration and then you come with your research.
Yeah. You don't want to flag with like, hey, I'm a researcher. Can you... I know you're having super much fun, but you're going to have more fun with me. So tell me everything. No.
Yeah.
So I always, I try to let them do their thing. And if there is an opening, I try to be there.
Okay. So during this celebration, you were observing how people move, dance, talk with each other, just like more observing and the life that's happening there.
Yeah. But then again, I engage, like, going back to the participatory observations. So you have dancing, you have the lighting of the bonfire. So I'm there. It's in March in Sweden, so it's kind of cold.
Yeah. And
dancing is perfect to get warm. So, you grab a hand in each. And then you
like
go in circles.
Yeah. With the music.
Yeah. And that's also actually a great way to bond with the others.
Of course.
And to, you can over the shoulders be like, hi.
Yeah. What
you
do
always
do?
come here, ask a few questions in a more...
Chit chat.
Yes.
And also food, no?
In the one in Järvafield, there was... Yeah.
No food?
I think they have like snacks.
Okay.
More simple things. But it's not like... dolma. It's not like proper food.
That's why maybe I was not there. I want like
you didn't miss anything with the food.
Great. So this is the part one of the field. I have a question, because sometimes I see I do a lot of also field work and dialogues and talking to children, people and so on. Sometimes because I read reports from other organizations how they do it and so on. Sometimes I feel they are complicating this conversation. It's because like they have a very long methodology and a lot of, a lot of structure, which leads that people get very annoyed by this super heavy structure. I think, and I tried, like having a just light conversation will get a lot of output. And just like instead of complicating the participatory engagement or activity, just like we are human, we talk and this is it. I don't mean that I do it just like this without any like of course I do reading and so on, and we put a lot of respect to people, but I don't want to complicate things. What is your take about?
No, I completely understand your point. I just think it's always so important to be clear and transparent as a researcher, because you're going to the field or the site with an intention.
Yeah, you have a goal and
and it's very important, I think. That's how I've, been taught now. To always be clear with what it is that I'm expecting from a conversation, just so that the other person understand that, okay, we're not just having a conversation between two people. What I'm saying and my words will or might be used for another purpose.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's always important. If you ask start with a simple conversation, at least end with saying, I'm a researcher. These are my intentions. Are you okay with this?
Yeah, exactly.
And always inform, like, this is me. These are my contacts.
Yeah.
Get back to me if you don't feel comfortable in any way. So that's also could be worth mentioning. When I do fieldwork, I always give them an information note. Like, this is my research. This is my name.
Yeah.
This is the department. It's a part of this project.
Exactly.
If you want to ask further questions, contact me, please. So now I have established relationships with the gardeners.
That's good.
So sometimes we text each other and they're like, "Oh, this happened. You should get back here now." So it's nice.
Come back and save us.
Yeah.
No, I think of course it's important that you tell them about the purpose and the goal and why you're there, because you take your time. So it shouldn't be wasted time. But then what irritates me is that when I read some reports, or it's so long method and process and so on. Me, myself, I will not take part of these workshops or so, because it's too, I don't know if this is the right term to use, too academic or too much of, I don't know if you understand me.
But you mean it's in the research reports?
No, it's a normal, let's say a company doing, or a consultant doing engagement activities with the community. And then I look at the method. Oh my God, so many hours just to have an answer for this.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I'm not a big fan of complicating stuff.
I understand. It's a hard question to answer, Mustafa, or to reflect on. I mean, if it's a simple question you need to have asked, I mean, you need an answer for.
Yeah.
Of course, it doesn't need to be that complicated.
Yeah.
But if it's a part of a larger project,
of course,
maybe you need more in-depth, quality from these interviews.
Yeah.
If it's interviews or if it's workshops, I think it all depends on the.
Of course,
how large is the project or the
Interesting. Yeah. So this was the first phase with the method that you use, and then archive. You mentioned archive.
Yes.
What is what do you do there?
This is also it's quite large for me. So you have archives everywhere. It's oral history. That's a term, perhaps.
What is it? What?
Oral history, you sharing your history of your childhood to me. That's oral history.
Is the podcast history, or no? Please say yes.
Over time,
maybe later in 100 years. Okay.
Yes, over time, maybe.
Yeah.
So this is I use this method quite a lot when I interview people and ask about their past and how they've engaged with different let's say things. So it could be the gardening.
Yeah.
Or it could be how they use the neighborhood park in Kalmar, or if it's how they have participated in the Noros event. That's them sharing, their history.
Okay.
And it fits in with a larger history. This is also how I'm trying to, write my PhD. So I try to lift these voices that are not heard otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's a part of the archive. That's one thing.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have the physical archives, the libraries, Kungliga, it's Royal Library in English, I think, here in Stockholm. Or you have specific libraries. You have a Kurdish library, actually.
There is one?
In Alevik. It's called.
This is amazing.
It's called Kurdish Library. I think that's it. So you have, libraries, online, these search, what is it called?
Engines or?
Search engines.
Yeah.
also tied to universities, articles, books, all of this.
So things are documented. Yeah.
And then, of course, another physical archive is also the one at, I don't know, Länsstyrelsen in English.
I have no idea.
Länsstyrelsen.
Anyway.
Sorry for all of you who are listening.
Yeah.
So, it's like a regional,
I don't know if we should call organization or department.
Let's say a regional department that takes care of more like larger questions. That's my way of explaining. So they also have archive.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yes, Länsstyrelsens archiv. And then you have the municipality archive.
Yeah.
All of these are so important for me when I try to dig into the history to understand like what is documented, what is not documented. And that's what I'm trying to do with my research. I'm trying to, we have these documented data and information, and then there are like glimpses and pieces that are missing, and I'm trying to, write in this
the missing part.
History. Yeah. Part of the oral history is to contact associations that are tied to the events or what is happening.
Yeah.
So I try to interview them as well to understand what is missing and what is not missing.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think it depends on what it is you're searching for.
Was it easy for you to find what you want?
Yes and no. Mostly no.
Mostly no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have to dig. You have to dig to get your answers. And most PhD students have so specific questions that you need to go really...
It's very niched.
Yeah, you need to go really deep to get an answer. And even if you don't find like a clear answer, you pick up the pieces and,
put them together.
And that's a result.
Do you need did it happen that you need to pay to get information, to access information? Because sometimes when I search something, I got into the homepage and they be like, subscribe and pay so much so you can read this kind of paper. I don't know.
I mean, I do that with books. I buy books.
You buy.
So in that way, yes. Articles are online, and we access them through KTH, the university where I'm based.
Okay.
So no, it's books. I mean, I think it's a good investment to do. I don't mind paying for that knowledge.
Yeah. Do you think sometimes you don't find all pieces? Let's take like the Nowruz case, or maybe the other case. You didn't find any, or not so much related to this topic. Is it because the people who was doing Nowruz were not so good in documenting, or people in Sweden didn't see that this is important, so we just keep it? It's not related to our culture.
I think, they are great at documenting each year that there will be a celebration.
Who are they?
They, as in the association that organizes Nowruz, for example. Now that we're looking at that case study. But me as a landscape architect, so I'm looking at the site. Like, what is happening to the site when this celebration is happening?
Yeah, the physical built environment.
Yeah, so I think because I'm looking at it from another point of view, I'm not getting, I need to put these puzzles together. I ask questions about how do you organize the space? This is not something that is maybe interesting for them to write about when they're like, announcement, we will celebrate here, and
they don't say we put benches 5 meters from the wall because
exactly.
Okay,
that's just me wanting to.
Okay, now it's
so in that way, I mean,
the image is clear now for me. So maybe like after you finish your PhD, maybe someone in the future, if they are looking for Nowruz and in relation to the physical built environment, they will find something, right?
Hopefully, yeah. That's what I'm trying to do with that case.
Okay. So it was, you didn't find so much information because the question you're looking for is not really documented, or maybe the general public is not interested in like the physical design of. But
also, this is very typical.
Yeah.
When you're doing a PhD, you're trying to get answers that haven't been asked. Before. So you're trying to push it forward.
Of course, explore more and put more. And how is when you talk to people? you told like bring more voices and so on. How do you choose these voices? What are your criteria? And
honestly, it's mostly the snowball effect. That's maybe a term. I'm just mentioning all the terms. Yeah. So the snowball effect is, for example, if I ask you a question like, Mustafa, where can I get the best kebab in Stockholm?
Yes.
And you're like, I don't know, but my friend knows. You should ask my friend. And then you put me in contact with your friend. And then your friend is like, I know one place, but my other friend knows a better place. You should contact him, you know. Yeah. So that's the snowball effect, you know, it rolls and rolls and rolls.
It rolls on getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So through one person, your network grows.
Yes.
And that's the method I normally use.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way, even though it's really difficult and how it is.
Why?
Because it's not always you get to this point where the person that you're talking to has more to suggest, but you try, and if they do, you can always ask if they have other
people that you can talk
or people, and then
continue.
It's the most natural way, I think. Also,
but tell me, how do you choose as a PhD student? How do you choose the people? How do you give the space to people, and why this person and not that person?
So it's mostly like I choose everyone if I could.
No, of course, so but then you have a limitation.
So it's not that there are that many. For example, in the gardening culture, in the gardening case study in Holma, I haven't chosen. No. I have just interviewed everyone. That's my method.
Okay.
I've interviewed everyone, and if like 2 or 3 or 4 gardeners tell the same story, that's just better. So that's my method. The method develops with time depending on the results.
Okay. That's very deep.
It's
but you say it now.
it takes a lot of work, but the results are fruitful. You get so happy when you're like,
of course,
I can now connect this with what someone else has shared before, or this is tied to larger questions, and so when I don't choose in that way if I don't have to choose.
And so with every person you need to write questions and send it to them, or how do you do the interview?
So the interviews,
trying to learn from you for my podcast.
I think you're an expert already.
Oh, nice.
So actually it's weird to be on the other side of the conversation. I'm normally on your side when I'm doing my work.
Time to pay back.
No, so with the research questions, I always I think I have nothing. I know. I have like a paper with where I've prepared questions. And I share with the gardeners, like I will ask you questions about this and this and like the themes of the questions. And then I always inform them. If you're not comfortable, we're just moving on.
We skip this.
Yes, of course. And I normally record the conversation also because it's hard to document everything.
You need to be present and have eye contact and listen actively.
Yes, and being present is very important if you want to establish this, connection and relation, of course. So I have these questions. Sometimes they want to see the questions, and of course they look, I don't mind. And then so we start with very basic questions, and then from there it normally rolls
it's a
rolls
conversation
into other questions that are, and so I let them lead the conversation, you can say. I ask more like where, when, how,
and then
explain
they
further,
they talk.
So I try to push them forward, but I don't ask yes or no questions, because then it's hard to have a conversation.
Do you call it open questions, or what do you call it?
Open questions, semi-structured questions.
You see, I know these kind of terms. How long does it take? Like 1 hour, more?
Oh, it's so different. It depends on who you're talking to. Like sometimes they don't want to. They don't have the interest of talking more than 10 minutes maybe.
Only?
And
okay.
others are really engaged in the conversation, so it can go on for like 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had one of those this autumn.
Okay.
I mean, for me, it's so fun. It's mostly,
because you're getting more data.
Yes, but also because it's just so fun to see others being engaged in questions that I'm asking.
Yeah.
And then I realize afterwards, like, I'm really tired. Oh, whoa, it's been 3 hours. You realize afterwards. But I'm so grateful for all of those, who want to answer questions or be a part of this research. And I get a lot of people. I mean, a lot of those that I've interviewed so far, they're so friendly and happy to provide with more if they could.
Good. That's so sweet.
It's a really, for me at least, it has been a really nice journey and experience.
Of course. Do you did you count how many people you talk with or you interview? Do you have a number?
That's such a good question.
More than 10?
I mean, by now I think we're already around 60, 70.
What?
Yeah. I think so.
So many.
With the gardening, I think it's only the gardening, that case study. I have about around, I think it was 27.
Wow.
Yes. And then counting with the workshops and so on. So yeah, 60, 70, then, maybe more.
Yeah. But then you are like, how to say,
I haven't counted.
You have a good experience now. And I want to ask you, how do I make the person in the front of me feel comfortable and willing to share more of the story with me, not only the general story, but more like some kind of secret and so on, because when you feel good about the person in the front of you, you feel like more comfortable and safe to talk about. So do you have like a kind of trick to make them feel?
I mean, first of all, I think you're doing a great job. Yeah, I'm comfortable. Maybe it's because we know each other. I think your other guests have also been, comfortable sitting on this chair.
Thanks.
No, but jokes aside, I think that if you as a person are comfortable in your, what you're doing and not being that strict and, tense, I think it comes natural. Just being comfortable and honest and, asking questions that are not too complicated.
Yeah.
Of course, it has to be simple. You can even ask hard questions in a simple way. So just being comfortable and being yourself and being honest, I think.
And use simple language.
Simple language.
Not academic, maybe.
No, I would not say that helps. Not an academic language if you want to go deep. I'll just raise question marks.
Did it happen that you ask a question, but the person in front of you didn't want to answer and give you more of the story and just kept themselves?
Yeah, many times.
Okay.
And that's completely fine. I mean, it's on their terms. So
You didn't push?
Never.
No?
No. You don't push. I mean, you have to respect their boundaries and, going back to the ethical questions, I'm doing this for research, but on the other side, it's their life. So
exactly, yeah.
You have to put yourself in that person's shoes and you don't want to, you want to be respected and respectful. So it goes both ways. And,
If you give them cookies and coffee.
Maybe with the older people, the cookies help.
It helps, I know. They will tell you everything.
Actually, I do buy when I've interviewed older people, I normally buy them. We have a fika.
That's nice.
Maybe there is something to look into this.
What?
Maybe I'm tricking them into, giving me answers when I buy them fika.
You mean but that's sweet, no?
Yeah, it's okay.
Look, I'm old. Buy me fika.
Right.
You should bring me some cookies.
It's actually it's nice.
It's fun.
Having fika and having a conversation makes it so much more. I've noticed because sometimes I don't do that, and other times I do it.
Yeah.
But it makes it so much more comfortable.
I think this is a beautiful human being element that we share food with each other and just sit around the table, eat and talk and so on. I think it's very beautiful.
Speaking of making someone more comfortable, I think that also can help to have something to,
in between.
Or to have something to, touch or work or, distract themselves. If otherwise there could be like, oh, now maybe, it can become stressful. I need to answer a bunch of academic questions. I don't know.
Okay.
So I think the fika is maybe this.
Yeah. Interesting. So this is how you gather data from stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mustafa, maybe to those who are not Swedish, fika is when you basically have a coffee or tea, a beverage, and something sweet to eat next to it.
Yeah.
That's worth mentioning.
And talking.
And so it's like a break. You have it in the morning, like 10 o'clock maybe. And then you can also have a fika break in the afternoon around, let's say 2, 3. When do you have it here?
I think one in 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
And one in the afternoon. So sit, have a coffee, eat cookies. And
very established.
Yeah. It's
in
very
Swedish culture.
Very strong culture. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Can't not like it.
Exactly. Okay, so this is how you gather data and information from people.
Yeah.
And then there is like the library and data from from the history. Mm-hmm. What do you do with this?
So this is when I go back to the puzzle,
Yeah, because you have your observations on the site.
Yeah.
And then you have the stories from people.
Yeah.
And then you have the history.
Yes. So I try to combine these stories and write a new version of the history. And I also try to theorize, like I'm not only describing the history of what is happening, but I'm also, trying to theorize it. What does this mean tied to larger, questions to society or political, changes or philosophical theories. So this is what I do, and then I have these landscape analysis that I also put into it.
Okay.
That's also maybe methodology. There's a lot.
But wait, now it's like it's more than talking about the physical built environment. You're talking politics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Million Program, it is a political program in one way, because it was a social democratic government that pushed this forward to have these this national housing program. How to say, like, to envision it and have it built.
Yes.
So it is very political. I mean, structures are political. Architecture is political.
In the end, like if we go back, it's like.
So if you're like, I that's my gaze. I see everything as political. Everything is tied to political practices and political happenings.
So when you put the data together from different sources, observation, stories from people and documented history, and then you put together them and you say, okay, there is a gap here, I can fill it with this story, there is a gap here, I can do this.
Yeah.
And like, how do you document it? I mean, how do you document it? Like, is it gonna be somewhere established and people can read it? So we say, okay, now we have another part of the history or the story.
Well, that will be my PhD.
Like the final?
So the actual, document, that will be a book.
It's going to be a book?
Yes.
Nice. I didn't know that.
After these 4 years,
yes,
that's what you compile. It'll be a book that's your dissertation.
Okay.
The dissertation is the physical,
So it's going to be a book?
Yeah.
By Chero?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's what everyone does when they do.
We will come to this part about the PhD. You can see my knowledge about PhD, so like below zero.
But it's good. No, okay, I don't think it's below zero, but good questions.
Like zero. So this will result in a book.
Yes.
And this book, of course, will be part of the archive for the future generation.
So it's a thesis.
Yeah.
But the shape, how you imagine a book, that's the structure.
Okay. And in this book will be the kind of the clear image that gathers different sources of histories put together.
Yeah. I also want to go back to this, Mustafa, the puzzle that we talked about.
Yeah.
it's not only that I'm filling gaps, like I'm also trying to, with this new history and these new stories and, the traces that I found, I'm trying to put it like above the puzzle.
Making a new history.
Making a new history somehow. Or
like
just rewriting history, you can say. So it's because it's not always, you can... history is very subjective, It's always someone who's writing it. It doesn't necessarily need to mean that it's correct. It's just that it's perhaps one perspective.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to also be critical towards history. And
this is what I want to be now. Like, why should we trust what you write?
Aha.
Like, I'm sorry, but I'm trying
different.
to be... No, I'm trying to be, what do you call it in academia?
Critical?
Yeah.
It's good.
I want to question why, like, because you have a background, you have an agenda, and you have an idea, and you want to change something.
Yeah.
So why should I, when I read your history, why should I say, but this is the correct one?
I mean, I don't think there is ever a correct one. There are many histories.
True.
And together you can
have an image about maybe the situation.
Yes, exactly. For example, if you read my thesis or what I write, similar to other doctoral students or researchers, we don't write just based on our own
personal
ideas or thoughts. It's based on references and other sources, mostly also established sources that have a lot of knowledge, and so it's the same case with my research. I don't write it's not like
diary.
One day I woke up and
it's not like a personal diary.
No.
But still there is a personal touch because you choose what
definitely
you put, no?
Yes. And this is actually, I think for me it's very important to, going back to the transparency as a researcher. I write, like, my introduction to my thesis is about who I am, why I'm doing this, and what I want with my research. So I try to be as clear as possible. So I think this question that you're asking, I'm answering them early on.
That's good.
In my thesis.
That's good.
I will send it to you and see if you approve it.
Yeah, like, Mustafa, this was the answer to your first question.
It's 5 pages.
Okay, so there is... no, because I'm thinking, like, when people write history, there is an influence by the person, like, own thoughts and beliefs and background and so on.
Yeah.
And but you mentioned, like, there is not a 100% true or
never, I would say.
Yeah.
That's why I have to be critical. Could also be worth mentioning that I am doing my PhD in, like, within history theory and critical studies.
Oh, that's tough.
It's long. So I have many things to think about.
I remember I took, like, a methodology course.
Yeah.
7.5
credits.
Credits in the university, KTH, and it was so difficult. It was I couldn't breathe. I just wanted this course to finish.
Yeah.
It was so tough.
Yeah.
Like, you need to does it call it criticize?
Yeah.
Yeah, like every single word. Like,
yeah. Or I mean, like, but that's also
it's
good.
Tough. It's good, but it's tough.
You're like pushing your mind to think further and not just be like, someone is writing this. Okay, I believe it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is the correct.
To have this critical point of view. It's very important in all aspects of life, I think.
Yeah, but, like, I was comparing, like, in this academia, in this course, we were criticizing and, like, looking, on the subject. At the same time, as soon as I close the door and go out to the society, people believe what's written in the media, and this is the reality. It's so sad.
Yeah.
Like, so.
But I don't think everyone goes, how do you say?
Attend this course.
Yes, for example, or have this way of thinking with them. Yeah. We, for example, you and I, we have gone to we have had the privilege, I would say.
I'm very happy,
to have gone to university. We have been enrolled in these courses. We have learned this way of thinking. Maybe that's also, others can critique us.
Of course, yeah.
And be like, you're institutionalized. But then I don't know. Going back to politics, Is it good or is it bad? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay. So
But,
that's it was a good answer about like why should I trust what you write? Like, of course, I should read it with a critical eye as well.
Yes, of course. I mean, that goes to everything.
Yeah. When you write and so on, is there a person checking on criticizing what you're writing?
Yes, so I'm honored with two, or I'm grateful with two very good supervisors.
Okay.
One is Jennifer Mack, she's my main supervisor, and Katja Grillner, she's my second supervisor. And I have a lot of meetings with them.
Yeah.
We can going back to the KTA, PhD structure. I can talk more about that. You can
tell us more, yeah.
But yeah, so they basically, to answer your question, they guide me in which, like this is good, this is maybe,
what you produce and so on. Okay, like giving feedback.
They give,
Yeah. So tell me, like now I understand like the research question, the methodology you use, data you gather. Do you have some kind of, not findings, or like if you share with us about the transformation, what did you find so far?
About the transformation, it's a large question.
Yeah. I just realized when I asked this question.
Can you be more specific?
Like because you were investigating, like we have this typology in outdoor spaces and life, or it was aimed to a target group. We mentioned like this family with 2 kids and so with this socioeconomic level. And then after years, this is what is happening now, which is not like exactly the vision.
Yeah.
Like what did you find? How is this typology being used? Why is used like this?
So I can use one of the case studies,
take
which is
one,
the neighborhood park in Norrliden, Kalmar.
Yeah.
Looking at early sketches and designs from the archives.
Yeah.
You have to dig to find the original material.
Nice.
And interviewing the architects to understand, what were the visions at that time. I found out, for example, that it's a large neighborhood park stretching through the neighborhood.
Okay.
It's very central also. So it had hills in some areas and, larger, not large at the time, but there were trees on the outer corners. And then in some documents, it's written that they want to have like an ice skating rank. Okay. Is it called a rank? Yeah. Like a place for ice skating in the winters, and pulkabacke.
Yeah.
Pulkabacke, I would say it's
like a sliding hill.
Yeah.
With a snowboard.
Yeah.
Or something like this. Maybe.
Or like if you don't have a snowboard, you do it with a plastic bag.
Or you sit on your ass and just slide.
Yeah. Many versions. Many, let's say...
levels.
Yeah. It's a class question. No, but, with this ice rank, I don't know, they freeze a space to create this ice skating place.
Ice skating, yeah.
This was mentioned many times, like, we want this space to be open so that there is this opportunity.
Okay.
Today, there would never be this type of request. First of all, because of the climate change, you don't have these temperatures in Kalmar anymore. So that the ice, freezes.
Freezing.
Second of all, there is a complete different community, but also it's a more diverse group.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily like ice skating. I don't know if that's very
popular in their culture.
Yes, thank you. So it's not requested. That's just not something that they do. Instead, they would use that place as a soccer field. So you have, these are, you see these transformations. In the 60s and 70s, there were some outdoor activities that were popular or requested.
Yeah.
And today, they are different. You have festivals today, or you have Eid celebrations outdoors and prayers. You have... and there's a football association. They have events there with these children, that represents the whole world, you could say.
Yeah.
So it's very many cultures coming together and doing things that that they all feel like they have some type of connection with.
Okay.
But it takes place in the same space. It's just that the requests are different.
Yeah. Do you have more like example from the same place or? So because what you mentioned now is more about like the activation and the programming of the place is different. Because the people who are living in the buildings are not the same that was in the vision. Yes.
I mean, it's right today, the football culture I know is really strong in neighborhood Norrlidsparken.
Yeah.
So, and this wasn't planned for back then, but now the closest school to the neighborhood park, they always take out these what is it called, like soccer
goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
They put them out, and then there is like soccer going on all summer. Like
that's so nice.
It's really popular.
Yeah.
And you have these natural, or I mean they're artificial, but these borders that have been created inside the park. So you have like smaller
hills.
Yeah, you could say.
Yeah.
That frames the soccer area within the park.
Good landscape architect. Huh?
Yeah. It's traces from the 70s.
Programming. Yeah. Interesting.
So you have it physically as well.
Okay. Because now I have it's so interesting like to discuss this with you because I have a question now. Does it mean because things changed from the first target group or the people who lived there and now after 30, 40 or more? No.
60.
Yeah, 50, 60 years. Yeah. It's like the usage of the is different from what is in the vision. Does it mean that the architects failed? What does it tell us?
No, I would absolutely not say that the architects failed. I think they didn't, like in most cases, they did an amazing job having, highlighting that there is a need to use these outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
There is a need to program them. There is a need to leave these spaces open and wide to offer many different types of activities.
Yeah.
So there was this idea and this vision. And if it wasn't for this idea, if they had built houses on these parks, you wouldn't have had these cultures growing up or having a space in, in the outdoor environments taking place. So I think they did something very important in the 60s and 70s that we till this day still are very like we should be very grateful for.
I think it's a good point that you mentioned, like because it's a flexible, we could reprogram the same space and place to other kind of activities instead of like demolishing and building new, which means that they did a good job because we kept the same place, same resources. We just like reprogram it.
And it makes it even more like, for me at least, I get a bit worried when there are like ideas of renovation and demolition.
Okay.
Because these spaces are very programmed in one way, and there is a lot of research and thoughts and ideas behind the structures of that time. And I can guarantee you that energy put into the design of these spaces you can't see that happening today.
No, today you need to maximize every single millimeter to sell it, to get money.
Yeah.
And who cares about public spaces?
No, so
okay, so like from more like a design perspective, it's they did a good job because we could reprogram the space for different purposes, and communities change. I don't know, maybe in 50 years there is another type of community, who knows. But we could, the place was flexible. Is there another finding that you can comment what happened, the transformation, that maybe is it good or is it bad? And because you looked at it from the physical.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say if it's good or bad. That's not my place. Let's say I can only, showcase what my research has shown.
Yeah.
I can, through my writing or my research and in these all of these interviews and workshops I've held and conversations with both locals, but also others like planners, politicians, architects. Through this, I can show you what it is that's happening right now and what it is that has happened over time.
Okay, so like an image from the past, an image now about how is this place is being used. Okay, so interesting. So now you're like working on the gathered data and archive, and in which phase are you now?
So I am getting closer to this 80% that I mentioned earlier, which means that I haven't fully finished what I'm working on, and the results. I am slowly, getting to those.
Nice.
Which means that I can't really present my conclusions.
Of course,
Now,
like now in the pod, yes.
Yeah, but it for sure later on I will come back here and I will share.
Of course,
some of the conclusions.
I will, because you're gonna do like a presentation. Is it open for public later?
Yes, yeah.
I can come and listen.
For sure.
Yeah, but tell me, like, what is left? What do you need to do for the like 20%?
So I have this 80% presentation, and that means that I need to have my case studies like quite finished, my introduction, my methods, theories that I'm using. Most of the content, let's say, needs to be established.
Okay.
So now and at this stage I need to present all of that that I've gathered. I'm not supposed to gather more material at this period or at this, time.
It's more like processing what you gathered, kind of.
It's more that what I have processed, I will present at this stage. And then the next stage, which is the 90% research seminar, that's what we call it at KTH. That's the final presentation before the dissertation.
Okay.
So I have right now I have 3 presentations left. Seminars, presentation. So it's the 90%. At that stage, the 90%, I need to have everything more or less finished.
Cool.
And the conclusion is still not complete. After the 90%, we have the dissertation, which is, the set date where I defend my PhD.
Whoa.
So there will be a jury, there will be others who, ask questions and so on. And then everything needs to be done. I mean, it needs to be done months before that, actually, because it will be printed, this, book, this thesis.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
let's go.
By that time.
Yeah, of course. And it's like next year, right? 2025?
2025 during the spring.
Yeah.
We haven't set a date right now, but it's sometime in March. So
awesome. No, but I'm very happy. Like 3 years of your PhD, you came here, also shared with us methodology, what you work on, and like all these interesting cases and important. So I'm really like looking forward to hear the results and everything.
Yeah.
Very happy. I'm learned a lot, to be honest, like about different methods that you use and archive stories and talking to people. So a lot to learn from you.
I hope so.
Yeah. Cool. But then we move to the next part. Yeah. Okay, now we are on the final section of this long and interesting episode.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I love to hear more about your background and were you born, family, or childhood, and like your journey that brought you to landscape architecture, your passion. So take us back in time.
Okay. So all the way back?
All the way back.
Okay. Can be a long talk.
1900.
Yeah. So my family, I have a Kurdish background.
Yeah.
During the Iran-Iraq war, I'm going way back now.
Yeah, in the 80s.
The 80s. My family had to, they had to run, or basically they fled from the Iranian region of Kurdistan.
Okay.
Over, and they crossed the border to Iraq.
Yeah.
Because the Iranian government, the regime, they were throwing bombs in the Kurdish regions.
Okay.
So this was in the 80s. My family, it was my mom and my dad and my oldest sister at the time. They they fled the country, and then they were placed in a refugee camp.
In the north of Iraq?
No, it was in the, let's say, central part of Iraq.
Okay.
It was exactly by the border.
Ah, okay, there, yes.
And then from there, they were placed in an area that was closer to the northern part of Iraq, like closer to the Kurdish regions, something like this. That's how they explained it.
Yes.
And then they did another relocation of all, like, it wasn't only my family or my parents. It was also a lot of other, Kurdish people who fled, but also other minorities who did the same because they were also threatened by the Iranian regime.
Who was managing like the movement? Is it like some government or United Nations?
Yeah, so this is it was UNHCR. So I have periods where I still I send them, these yearly or monthly.
Is it contributions?
Yes, I do that because I somehow want to thank what they offered my family.
That's beautiful.
I didn't exist at the time, but I tried to give back to the system in that way. But yeah,
that's beautiful.
So it was UNHCR. They finally they ended up in a camp in Al Ramadi.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing
Ramadi,
correctly?
Yes.
So that was one of the largest refugee camps, and my family and other relatives. Who also fled or, had to flee during the Iran-Iraq war. They stayed in this refugee camp for about 16 to 20 years. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And and then my father explained that in the beginning they set up tents. So they were given tents by UNHCR. These blue tents, with the recognized sign.
Yeah, the logo.
But my parents, they quickly, especially my father, he said, we can't live like this. We can't handle these cold nights in the desert. We need to do something about our situation here. So I think for the first months, they lived in tents, but then it was my father, my uncles, they went together, as a community.
Yeah.
It was exactly how it was before they fled also, this community living, helping each other and all of this. So they took the dirt, and the clay, not dirt, but the soil.
Yeah.
And made clay...
bricks?
Clay bricks, yes.
Wow.
So they dried them in the sun.
Wow.
And then they began constructing their houses.
That's
from
amazing.
Nothing. So they just took what was existing with the help of that and water. And then sometimes I look at these images from the Al Ramadi, it's called Al Tash camp actually.
Okay.
In Al Ramadi. And then because I asked, Dad, was this what you moved into? And he was like, no, that's our engineering. And it was really, it's amazing to see the structures that they build because everyone had their porch. With also gardening, they had sunflowers.
So they made
in the middle of the desert
area, yeah.
So that was that, and then they had hens, and I think So it was they recreated the infrastructure they had in their past.
Amazing.
In this temporary place that became, permanent somehow.
Permanent, So it was your father, mother, and older sister.
Yeah, but then because it was many years where we stayed there, my brothers, they were born there.
Yeah,
I am blessed with 4 older brothers.
4.
Yes.
That's so great.
Yeah, and then so I'm the youngest child in my family, and I was also born there. In this the house that I described earlier with the garden and the hens.
Yeah.
And then I was born in 1994. And 1996, I was a year and a half or something. My family got, through UNHCR, they got the chance to relocate to a European country.
Okay.
Because we were political refugees.
Yes.
We had this refugee status. And my parents also worked for UNHCR. In many ways, my mom became a birthing nurse, barnmorska, in the camp, and my father did other services for those who worked there.
Yeah.
So I think having them help, in many ways, also help them with being relocated.
Yes.
So a few of me, my family and my relatives chose Sweden. I have relatives in Switzerland and, other countries as well.
Yeah.
And then other relatives actually chose to move back to the Iranian region of Kurdistan.
Okay.
So back to their hometown and village.
Yeah.
So my family, or not my core family, but my relatives were spread out like all over the world, more or less. But yeah, so that's where my journey began.
Yeah.
And we moved to Kalmar, where my uncle already lived. So it was like we arrived to a place completely new. I mean, I say I was very small. I don't remember anything. Yeah. But I've documented when my parents talk about this journey, like they saw snow and they saw white people with blonde hair. It was like in the movies. That's how my mom said. So it was so fun. She was like, it wasn't like in the movies anymore. It was real. I saw these people with blue eyes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember, and then of course there was a lot of like cultural clashes and a lot for them to handle from having lived in a very simple way, among the mountains in Kurdistan, to having fled a war, to living in a refugee camp, and now living in a very, let's say, calm but also different place in Sweden. So the journey my parents have done, I can never imagine, because I've only grown up in Sweden and I don't know,
Yeah. Good for you.
It's good, but it's also somehow sad. I would have.
Why sad?
Because I haven't seen what they have seen. I haven't seen the struggle. So it's like us, let's say second generation immigrants or migrants. We're always like in an in-between world. We have our heritage and we have this new, let's call it new.
Yeah.
Life.
Maybe
I think we share different versions there, Mustafa.
Maybe you are the life reward for them, because they suffer a lot, and then now they see you, how to say, educating yourself, working in the PhD, and so you're growing, taking place in the society. So like your maybe your mission in life, you don't need to suffer, because now you're a reward for them.
Yeah.
Something like this.
This is what they like when they get mad at us children. This is what my mom and dad always shout at us. They're like, "We did this for you. The least you could do is, get an education." So
you moved here when you were like kind of 2 years old, something like that.
Yeah, so I was less than 2 years, like a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
And then, so I was enrolled in kindergarten, moved to this, one of the case studies, Norrliden, grew up there with my relatives and life was a whole, like a big playground. Everything was, accessible, and you felt like the world was yours. And I have these Million Program structures to thank for giving me this childhood that is so, maybe I am romanticizing my childhood, but I honestly, when I think back at how I lived and the freedom that I felt in this small, bubble
community,
it's thanks to the structures of that period. It was traffic separation. You had these larger outdoor spaces where you could play and, play soccer or play basketball, or you could hide yourself in the bushes or climb the trees and, eat the plums and all of this. It was there. I didn't need to go that far away to have this beautiful...
I agree with you, Chero, because when I moved to Sweden, I was not, I was a kind of like teenager.
Yeah.
But also we lived in the Million Program area, and the infrastructure and the public spaces and, like a place for football, place for community gathering. It was there. It was not like super dense, so you cannot even like have a sit under a tree.
Yeah.
Like nowadays at the urban development that's happening, let's say in the big cities, like good luck with finding space.
Yeah.
Public space.
Yeah.
So
it's very different.
Yeah.
I mean, there are probably qualities in these spaces as well, but all I can say is that I'm so happy that I grew up in a Million Program neighborhood. And I have also had conversations with my mom because my dad was working long hours, so he wasn't with us that much because, especially in the beginning when they migrated to Kalmar, it was very quickly like, you need to integrate and now you need to work.
Yes.
There was no time to educate yourself. You need to produce money for the state and, be...
Put food on the table.
Yes, and be... independent and not be a burden to the,
Yes.
Society. But yeah, I remember having conversations with my mom and I said, but mom, how come you let us, children be outdoors and play that long? And she was like, it was so comfortable, Chero. Everyone knew everyone in this community. Like I could shout from my balcony and your aunt could hear me, and then she could shout from her balcony, and they would call for you to come back home. Like it was like a network. Everything. It was just working together. And then because of this traffic separation, it also allowed for the parents to feel more comfortable.
Yeah, because the children have a freedom to move and to play. It's also safe.
Yeah, without being afraid of a car, driving full force and all of this. Yeah. So I really enjoyed my childhood in Kalmar. It was amazing. And I went to a school where this is also where I began seeing, there is another world outside of Norrliden. Because,
So Norrliden was only about immigrants?
Mostly migrants lived there. Or people with different socioeconomic background than, let's say, typical middle class Swedish family.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of this road that separates Norrliden from the other suburbs, you had row houses and villas, and that oftentimes, especially back then, meant that there would be another group of people living. So mostly Swedish people. But what was so good with this local school in Norrliden was that all the children from both the
areas,
from both areas did attend. So there was this mix happening in the school, and that's what's so that's also another important system that helped so much with both us learning more about Swedish culture, but also Swedish people learning more about other cultures. So it became like a place for where cultures met, basically.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So also that was really nice, like the school period. And then we relocated a few times in Kalmar, and then I graduated from, I'm jumping forward, but I graduated from high school.
Yeah.
And before I graduated, I'm the type of person, maybe it's worth mentioning, I'm very if I have one thing in my mind, I'm going to do everything to get it. So when I was in high school, I knew I was into design and draw, I love to draw.
Yeah.
And my parents had an allotment garden, which they got very early on. This culture came with them from Kurdistan all the way to the refugee camp to Norrliden. So it was always with them wherever they traveled. The seeds and the vegetables and So and that was in its turn passed on to me. So I love to spend time in the garden
doing, what you love.
Being there, especially because it was time for me to have a connection with my father. It was oftentimes him, gardening, and my mom would oftentimes send me to get what he had harvested. Can you get some beets, or can you get I don't know. There's so many parsley. Get us 1 kilo of parsley. I'm just joking. I'm exaggerating. No, but so that would be my time to also spend time with my father, because I grew up with him working almost his whole life. So the gardening moments became so special to me. So in high school, I was like, well, I do like this and I do like design, but I want to become an architect, because I guess that's what you do, and you like to design and you like to draw. And then I started reading about housing architecture or building architecture.
Buildings or... like
the typical
architect,
way of... and then I read landscape architect, and I was like, oh, what is landscape architect? Like, what do they do? Do they design landscapes? And what is
landscape?
What is like? It just got more and more confusing for me. Like, what is this? Like, and then I remember Googling landscape architecture, and I saw roads, like highways, and I was like, but what? They're designing highways. These kind of landscapes, like what you see from the window when you're driving. So it was really like confusing, but I was like, maybe that sounds more. It sounds like something closer to what I want to do. Because I then, reading and learning more about it, I understood that it's the landscape architects that, design, or they can design parks and squares and outdoor spaces and of all kinds. So I was like, this is what I want to do. And I love plants. It's like win-win. I'm going to go for it.
How to say? Perfect match.
Perfect match.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school, had 1 year, like a gap year, where I also worked with my father. Like I got a job where he worked in a factory.
Really? Nice.
Going back to the story of wanting to be closer to him, and also there I did like these observations, like how is the industry culture? Like I've always, I have this curiosity in me, like how do people interact here? How do they go from this to that? What happens in this? Yeah, maybe there's an ethnographer in me. I don't know.
Who knows?
Wanting to study people and culture. So that was that, like 1 year, a gap year where I worked with my father. And then the next year, just for fun, I applied for the landscape architecture program, both in Lund and in Uppsala.
Okay.
Because that's where it is in Sweden.
Yes, 2 universities.
Yeah, at the University of SLU.
Yeah.
And I applied for it, and there wasn't much more to it. And then one summer day, me and my cousin Hannah and my mom, we were like, let's have a road trip. Let's visit one of the campuses. Like, let's visit the campus in Uppsala. And then we went to the campus, and it was also actually on the day of when you get enrolled or not, first day of university. Yeah. And I remember meeting someone like who worked like staff at SLU, and I asked, "Where are the landscape architects? I want to see what their school looks like." Just being like really
like curious about.
Yeah, curious, but also like I didn't think anything like at all about wanting to actually begin. I was just like, I want to see the campus. I want to see how it is, because I will apply like in the year after begin. And then she was like, have you applied for the landscape architecture program? And then I was like, yeah. She was like, but you should go into that room. And I was like, oh, okay. What? Now it's going quickly.
Yeah, like that escalated quickly.
Yes. And my mom and my cousin, they were still waiting by the car. They wanted me to. So just to do like a quick
just like
run of
check.
Yeah. But what happened was, so I entered the room. They started to read out names.
What?
And then they were like, is anyone in the room? Is there anyone in the room who hasn't been, had their names read out loud? And I remember having a conversation with another girl, and she was like, yeah, and she hadn't been enrolled.
No.
Or she didn't have like a spot in the program. And then when she did that, I was like, okay, maybe I should do it too. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just
like following the crowd.
Yes, exactly. Like, oh, maybe I should, I don't know. And then they wrote our name. And then in the afternoon, because this was like, let's say after lunch. And then in the afternoon, the teacher came to me. She was like, you've been accepted. And I was like,
no.
Okay, hold up.
What?
This is going quickly. And then so I ran to my mom and my cousin and the car. And I was like, so maybe you should go back to Kalmar. I'm staying here. And they were like, what is going on? My mom got a mini heart attack. She was like, I'm not ready for this to happen. And I was like, yay, student life. We were in different modes.
Wow.
Yeah. So then, that's how I began the program.
The journey.
Yeah. And it was such a nice.
Yeah.
It was like I learned so much during the program, but I remember also then like wanting to push myself and always doing more. I did courses next to doing internships. So always trying to find new ways of like making it more effective.
Yeah.
And then in 2019 I graduated after and during my landscape architecture program I did a semester at the University of Melbourne.
Nice.
They had very good courses, and it was also nice to see other,
part of the world.
Networking. And then I wrote my master's thesis with a friend in the school, and we were in Rio writing about the favela and writing, like we did like landscape analysis there with the help of the locals, of course. So. And there, I think that's when I had like my interest to doing field work and working with communities and trying to understand different cultures. I think that's where it like developed into more. And then we found each other at the consultancy firm.
It was fun.
It was really nice.
To be honest, like it's one of the best years when we worked together because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Like laughing the entire time, making jokes and producing and working hard, like play hard, work hard.
It was like the best introduction to the work life. You gave it to me, Mustafa. You and the other amazing colleagues. Yeah,
we had a great people.
Yeah, a group. It was a nice group.
yeah. But it was tough. We were doing this like when you came because you were kind of training a lot with like physical training. And you introduced this like a physical activity.
The clock.
Yeah.
Right.
And I hate it so much because like we need to do 10 push-ups or we need like to jump or we need to
it was like at a certain hour or what was it?
10 or 11, something like this. We had like this exercise clock and you turn the wheel and then tick, 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 tick. Now we do 15 million push-ups. And
I remember. But it was nice also, right?
It was fun. Yeah, it was one of the activities that brought us like together.
You did it 5 times and then you're like, I'm not going to do this anymore.
I pretended that I have work.
I remember.
I have a meeting, so I
didn't believe.
I'm like, 10 o'clock? I have a meeting.
Oh, someone is like calling me from work.
I'm sorry. Then That's fun. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. So your passion developed during different time of your life.
Yeah,
like childhood and when you traveled Melbourne and
and then so we work and then the pandemic hit and there was a lot happening around us which resulted in me moving back to Kalmar, having a break and just understanding, okay, what do I do with my life now that I don't have a job anymore? And so there was so much happening during, I remember that we talked a lot about what do you do when the world stops, basically. Like the society, nothing is rolling anymore. So that was definitely difficult. I remember it was also very hard mentally. Yeah, I tried to stay as active as possible with doing coursework and I tried to come up with own design ideas. Just tried to stay active because there were basically no job opportunities out there. But luckily, suddenly this PhD position popped up. And then I applied for it. It was like the first, I told you it was a long process just to get accepted, but I applied for it maybe 6 months or something into me not having a job. And so around less than a year after I didn't have a job, that's when I started the PhD position here in Stockholm. So I moved back and I've been here since.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Thanks. It feels good to be back. It's like, sometimes in life you go through these difficult parts. Now I'm just talking about what happened with my life and my education and work. Yeah. But there is so much other things that also happen, of course, which takes its toll on you. But at the same time, you learn a lot from these different,
Yeah. What do you do when life is tough and not treating you well? What did you learn to do?
it's so hard. But like first and foremost, I'm so grateful to have amazing cousins. They help me so much. Like if there is something happening in life, I always turn myself towards them and I'm like, hey, can you help me with this? It's either that or I like work out, or I try to do something. I don't know how to,
like keep yourself busy.
I keep myself busy
and not only thinking about like this
and try to see opportunities. I think because it's so hard when you only think about the negative, then you lose hope. And if you lose hope, it's really hard to push yourself.
Then you get into this dark bubble.
Yeah, so I think that's what I do. I turn myself to friends and family when it's at the lowest, and then next to that, I always try to, find new ways of solving what I'm in. I don't like to be like, I'm not the person that do you say grabble, like that repeats itself, like, oh, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard. Okay. I'm not that type of person, because I'm not the type that likes to complain. This is the better word.
Yeah, exactly. This
I like to find like solutions.
Yes.
And maybe I'm like too stubborn with that sometimes. Maybe sometimes it's better to just be like, okay, life is how it is. You don't need to solve anything. So, there's a lot to work with. We're still young.
Of course,
the journey is long.
Yeah. And because in your life you moved a lot, how to say, when you start to study, you move abroad. Then like you moved to, was it Uppsala? Yes. Uppsala city in the north, far away from Kalmar, where your family. Then you went to Melbourne, then you did your thesis there. Then you went to Malmö, then you came back here. So a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Like you don't miss that you need to settle and have one place and just have your like own comfort zone? Or how is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm settling now that I'm doing my PhD here for 4 years. And then there will be a new adventure.
After it, yeah.
But no, I think it's a bit in my, like, I don't know how to say, like blood.
DNA.
So always, like, I be on my tiptoes. I need to do something that stimulates me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, like if something happens in life where I get a chance, or if life offers me a way of settling, I will settle. But it all depends on what happens,
Yeah.
I try to be open, especially now I'm doing my PhD, and then I need to be open to what happens after that. So it's a bit dependent on my work situation, I think.
Do you miss family? Because you told
all
me
the time.
You have like a big family, many cousins. I think many of them still in Kalmar.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have many cousins, many siblings, and also many, how do you say, like
grandchildren,
nieces and nephews.
Yeah, because I see like on Instagram when you gather with family, so many people, and I will like, wow, this is so beautiful.
Yeah. And I don't even think I show all of them. It's hard to capture them all. Yeah, I mean, I think I have 6 nieces and nephews. 6? Let me count.
But wait, you have 1 sister, 4 brothers.
I have 1 sister, 4 brothers. I have 6 nieces and nephews, and 1 is on its way. So I have 7,
wow.
And 2 of my brothers. So, and these are from 3 siblings.
That's so beautiful.
3 of us have children and 3 of us don't have children. Basically saying we're not finished yet. So yeah, big family.
Yeah.
It's so nice. I love when we all gather.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes you get a headache, but that's a part of having a big family.
This is it. You can't do anything to it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's so nice to see, the children growing up, but the sad part is I'm not in Kalmar, so I'm missing it.
Yeah, like you're not in touch directly.
But I try to go visit Kalmar and Linköping, where I have my sister, as much as possible.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like a highlight about your life.
Yes.
What motivates you to do what you do today?
What motivates me?
What gives you energy?
Maybe it is like family, friends, trying to always stay hopeful and finding new things. Maybe this is what motivates me. It's hard to reflect on such a large question. But I would, I'm also, of course, there is something in me that wants to somehow give back to what my parents, what they have, seen and the journey they have done.
Yeah.
So of course there is also that, motivation. So me doing a PhD, of course, it's also one part is for my family.
Of course.
So I find strength and motivation in also making them happy. Except for, of course, making myself happy.
Yeah, of course. It comes from you first, then it goes to them.
For sure, that is also a pure like motivation.
Nice.
Seeing them, seeing what I do.
Yeah,
it's proud. Like a circle. It gives back.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like in 100 years from now, what do you want people to read about you, to associate you with? What do you want to leave after you?
In 100 years? It's a difficult question. In 100 years, I hope that I am seen as someone who have triggered like curiosity, and perhaps found like, I don't know, I have put the spotlight on things that have been untold previously. So, yeah, one of these two things.
Yeah.
Triggered curiosity. I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's good to be aware, like not to. Yeah, I don't know. That's me as a person, but to always question, like, why is this system the way it is? Like, what is it that we're seeing? Everything that we have been taught in university. I think it's good to, not everything, but a few things. Let's be clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but to, like this, just not criticize in a bad way, but but to ask questions.
Yeah.
And to not settle with this is how it is and that's how it is.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at the political situation around us, if we just settle, I mean, we will get painted with one side of a story.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I think it's so important to stay curious and stay, aware.
Yeah.
And this goes to a lot of different things.
What I like, there are a lot of things about you that I like. What I like is one of these things are that you are proud of your history and DNA and family and heritage and so on, and how you took it to the next level. Like you're doing PhD, you have it as a case study. Some people, they say, no, I don't want to look back. I don't want this. I will live like this society and I will do this. But for you, you're like proud of where you're from, culture and so on. So I really love this in you. And I see like, now I understand the entire story. How was it and how this is part of your PhD. So I guess you're like enjoying doing your PhD because it's like what you study is part of you.
For sure. In many ways, like both my background, tying it to one of the case studies, and that I grew up in a Million Program neighborhood. I mean, and then the gardening in Malmö. So it's all tied to my story.
Yeah.
And that's why I've also shaped this PhD into becoming that. So I can give it all of myself, like honestly. And I'm trying to be as clear and transparent with that as possible.
Yeah.
Because I think if we have the interest deeply within us, it becomes so much easier to do something.
Yeah.
If you don't see it as a burden or a task, but as a passion, perhaps.
Yeah.
Then it's not difficult.
Yeah.
Of course, you have hinders. That's a part of the.
This is life.
This is life. But yeah, for sure, it makes it so much like more enjoyable to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. No,
when
I'm
you
happy.
find these core questions that you
exactly
keep wanting to
investigate
further.
No, that's beautiful. I'm happy for you.
Thank you, Mustafa.
Yeah. And what if we remove all of these and you have the chance to do or work in another profession, try something that you're not doing now? What would you like to work with?
Maybe like if I don't know, work within anthropology, like with humans and culture, for understanding, you know, how cultures work and all of this. I remember that when you ask this question, I'm thinking about my childhood. I kept hearing a lot of my like relatives. They were like, "Chero, you always like to debate. Like you always like to like. If I say something, you have to say something else. Like, what is this? Why don't you just become a politician?" And I really like it stuck with me. Like, am I maybe I'm a good debater. Maybe this is what I should do. But never. Absolutely, that was past me, not personally. Now I'm like, I respect politicians.
Okay, you don't want to be involved?
No.
No.
I can give them material. Like my research says that you should do this.
But don't involve me.
No. I can be an expert in a corner.
Yeah. Have you been back in Kurdistan?
Yes, actually, I did field work, so connected to the case study in Järvafield with Nowruz celebration, the New Year celebration.
Beautiful.
I was in the city of Diyarbakir. It's called Ahmed in Kurdish.
Okay.
It's in southeastern Turkey, which is also recognized as northern Kurdistan.
Yeah.
So I was there about a month ago now. Let me see. Yeah, about a month and a half ago, because Nowruz is celebrated on the 21st of March.
Okay.
And I was there observing the celebration and tying it to how it is celebrated in Järvafield. Yeah, just to understand the history and the background and how and why people gather and how it has become like a politicized symbol.
Yeah.
So I tried to understand the history to talk about the present here. But yeah, it was a very unique experience. There were some issues with the police there because there is a lot of threat from the police towards these minorities. It's not only Kurdish
to celebrate, or
it's been very, very oppressed to celebrate Nowruz, especially in the Turkish region. But this is like one type of oppression. They show towards the Kurds, but they also oppress other minorities such as Armenians and Assyrians and Arabic minorities also. So it's something the minorities have in common, and I got to witness this as well when I was there. So the state is not the kindest towards its people.
That's very sad.
And I saw it through the celebration of Nowruz also. And this is one aspect in my research. I compare how it is politicized there and how how the symbols manifest here in Järvafield.
Interesting.
So that's what I did. So that was a trip to Kurdistan.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so we are almost in the end of this conversation, and you have 3 questions. First one is about you giving a message to yourself. Yeah.
Let me see. I wrote down.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself and dare to take risks. That's the only way you know if it was your path or not.
To try.
Yeah. You need to try.
You're already doing, no?
Yeah.
Trying a lot of things.
It's trial and error, this life we're living.
Yeah.
That was my message to everyone.
Yeah.
And myself.
And yourself, yeah. And like 3 takeaway messages to our listeners. Could be like related to today's topics or out of this topic.
I don't know if I have 3 takeaway messages.
Tell me how many you have.
But I can say that I believe in faith and destiny.
Yeah.
So have faith in what is meant to be, and it will happen. And if it doesn't happen, it won't happen. And that's also a part of your, path.
Yeah.
So believe in faith and destiny.
I agree with you. Because you don't know what is hiding for you.
No.
Maybe life is hiding something more interesting than what you wish for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last question in this episode, after, 3 hours, 3 and 30, you will ask it. And this question is going to be to people listening to us. So what is your question?
Yes. So my question is, how would you tell the story of what is happening today if you were a fly on a wall or a tree?
Okay. Good question. Well, Chero, I'm so happy. Like you see, I think this is the longest episode in the podcast, but I'm enjoying it so much.
Me too. It's been such an amazing and interesting conversation I've had with you.
Likewise.
And you've also inspired me, with your questions.
Yeah.
And I feel that I have more to work with now.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy that we met. Learn more about you, like your story, your PhD, and things you do, and like behind the scenes. And also, like, I miss you so much from working together. So it's nice to hear how is it going for you.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.